Good morning. I'd like to ask everybody to silence your cell phones if you haven't, please. There's only one power and one presence in the universe, and that is God the Omnipotent. We here at Unity honor the many names of and the many paths to God. Will you please stand so we can open with our invocation by Charles Fillmore, Unity co-founder. We are now in the presence of pure being and immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. We acknowledge thy presence and thy power, O blessed Spirit. In thy divine wisdom, now erase our mortal limitations, and from thy pure substance of love, bring into manifestation our world according to thy perfect law. And our Lord's Prayer, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Please turn to hymn 52 in our hymnal, Ever in God's Presence. 52. Close your physical eyes now and relax. Relax completely. Take a deep breath and exhale all of your stress. Take another deep breath and exhale all of your negativity. Let peace overtake you. Feel your oneness with God. Feel your oneness with all of life. Peace, oneness, and divine order are ever present. At moments like these, you become aware of it. Peace be with you. Rest for a moment in the silence of prayer. This is a holy time when you stop rushing in your life. You stop worrying, and you access the peace and divine order that are omnipresent when we get still and let go and let God. For this holy moment, just breathe. Breathe deeply. Release all your negativity, fear, anger, judgment, anything that obscures seeing the divine order of life. Make a new spiritual beginning today. Make a new commitment to go in a new direction, led by God. Be in tune with the harmonizing power of God. Relax. Return to your source. We take this spiritual action because we need the renewal, the refreshment, the rebuilding that prayer and meditation are for. This is a time of quietness, a time of withdrawal from the outer world, a time of contemplation and deep communion, oneness with God. We stop and we rest. We withdraw for a few moments from all our pressures, thoughts, and concerns. In prayer, we enter into a realm that will revive us and renew us. This wisdom has been known forever, this rejoining with the source. But we forget. At times like these, we remember the ancient, eternal wisdom that has come to us through so many sources. Rest for a moment in the silence of prayer and oneness with Source. This is a recharging time that will enable us to do all the things that are before us to do easily, perfectly, on time, and in order. In this moment, you are feeling the beginnings of a revitalization through the power of prayer and meditation. You are beginning to feel a recharging happening inside of you. It is like the plugging in of a light bulb into electric current. God is the current. You are the light of the world. We are charged with new life from our source. We are infused with spiritual power. When we find ourselves tense, anxious, and pressed for time, we will be able to remember these moments of calm contemplation of God truth. When we feel ourselves as spiritual beings that we always are, when we feel God's presence, when we are lifted to new levels of thought and consciousness, we will remember these moments. We wish to live more creative, worthwhile, productive lives. We open our minds and hearts and lives to the light and guidance of God, and we are shown what is right for us to do. We are guided. We are given wisdom, strength, and direction. Silently and positively decree to yourself, I work with the Spirit of God, and I accomplish all things easily, perfectly, on time, and in order. I work with the Spirit of God, and I accomplish all things easily, perfectly, on time, and in order. With God's help, we do the things that we need to do. We are directed and guided to the right thought, the right person, the right place. You are now gaining a great sense of peace and freedom. You are finding in this prayer and meditation time that there is an order that is being established inside of you, in your thinking. And there is a new motivation of power coming from this spiritual recharging that will allow you to do all things with a sense of order and rightness. Divine order and positive thinking are happening now. You are in tune. You can begin to see the divine order within you and in all life. Positively and silently decree to yourself, God's divine order is in my every thought and every feeling. Divine order is in my attitudes. Divine order is in my ability to discern needed steps. Divine order is in my use of good judgment. The power of God is at work in you. You are one with God's power. You are a channel through which God's power flows. Divine order is in your life right now, and you see it. It is active in your thinking, in your body, and decree to yourself, I now fill myself with the true knowing of the omnipresence of God. My belief is in the belief of ultimate goodness of God's plan for me and for all God's creation. I know that divine order is real. It is steady, and God is in charge. Not my will, but thine be done. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. I have faith in the Spirit of good, the Spirit of love. The power of God is with me this moment. I am now aware that God is guiding me and giving me illumination. I feel this power flowing through my awareness right now. It is beyond anything that is outside of me. Divine order is occurring, and it is promoting growth and good and happiness. Rest in the silence of prayer. Divine order is happening in my life right now, establishing order, casting out the confused, the negative, and the complex. This prayer is a catalyst to start positive changes in the right direction in my life. I am receptive. I am a receiver of all that is good. I believe in the power of the Christ consciousness, which is always at work in and through me and through all circumstances and conditions. All things are working together for good when I am open to it. Silently and positively decree to yourself, God's law of order is at work in my life. I am now established in an awareness of this divine order, and right outworkings are forthcoming now, today, and this week. And I am so grateful. Will you please stand and sing hymn 117, Heaven is Here. 117, Heaven is Here. Well, good morning again. Good morning. I'd like to share with you something that ran across my desk last week. Charles Reed is given credit for it, but I have run across it in my Buddhist studies, my Tao studies, my Unity studies, and a lot of other places too. But I really wanted to share it with you. Sow a thought, and you reap an act. Sow an act, and you reap a habit. Sow a habit, and you reap a character. Sow a character, and you reap your destiny. This basically states the Unity's third principle, which says we create our world with our thoughts. Now, this doesn't mean that our thoughts create the outer world out there, though I know this is up for debate too. But this ancient wisdom says that our thinking is the lens through which we see and interpret the entire world out there. So, this view of the world is forming our destiny, basically. It's like life is one big mirror. I wanted to bring a big mirror today, but it was too heavy. But it's like life is a great big mirror. And what we see in that mirror is whatever is looking at it. Imagine if I put that big mirror up there and you're looking at it. What you see is the world to you. So it's spiritually and psychologically critical for us to spot and give up our negative, what do they call it? Stinking thinking. All my AA friends have drilled that into me. I love that. Stinking thinking. All those negative thoughts, like anger, unforgiveness, blame, judgment, fear, it goes on and on. Negativity blocks our inner purity or divinity and obscures all this natural peace and joy and love that are within us all. So how do we let go of our stinking thinking? That's the real question, right? That prevents us from manifesting our heaven on earth. That's what negative thinking does. It's what Jesus, Buddha, and so many others have told us is possible. If we can get rid of all that negative thinking, we can manifest heaven on earth, our own Garden of Eden. But first, we must spot our negativity, and that's kind of hard to do when we're young. Then, we have to own up to it. And finally, we have to eradicate it. So we have to spot it, own up to it, and get rid of it. Basically, this negativity is what we call the ego in a lot of spiritual circles. The ego, the non-divine part of us. The Bible has anthropomorphized this negativity, this ego part of us, and calls it the devil or Satan. And to banish this devil, we need to first recognize that it's there so that then we can release it. How, though? When negative thoughts arise, we must be very, very present and notice them. Anger, noted. Negative judgments, noted. Prejudice, noted. Some spiritual masters say to treat all these negative thoughts like movies just going on in our minds, right? Not to be mistaken for reality. They're just thoughts. We don't know how they got there. That's for the psychiatrists to figure out how they got there. Something happened way back in our childhood or somewhere, and something triggered it, and it started the movie. But eventually, we will learn how to just turn the projector off. But in the meantime, guys, a lot of us aren't there. We need to ask God, our higher power, for help. In the Lord's Prayer, it says, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. You can't help the thoughts that enter into your mind, into your movie theater, but you have control totally over what you do about them, right? How you'll see them. Just know that these negative thoughts are like horror movies and not real life. You know, children love to go to horror movies. I remember when I was a kid, I used to love, all week, I couldn't wait to go to the Saturday morning picture show at the corner theater, and it was half the time a horror movie. Remember The Day the Earth Stood Still? I still remember Gord Klaatu Barada Nikto, what you say to that huge thing that was coming at you. I've never forgotten it. I've been scared of it coming after me ever since. But it's a horror movie. These negative thoughts, it's high drama is what it is. Horror movies make us feel alive. Our dramas, our negativity make us feel alive. It's our own private horror movies. But the problem is, we get to the point where we realize maybe we feel alive with all that negative drama, but it isn't worth it. So, the excitement and negativity that create all kinds of diseases and misery and suffering. Finally, we realize it's just not worth it in life. So to help you become more conscious of these things, these negative thoughts, you might start noticing maybe, well, what's triggering that? Okay, so I'm angry. What triggered that? Maybe someone criticized a project or anything, but some project at work, and you start hating them. Crippling negativity, that I think probably that's happened to most of us at one time or another. However, there is another response, at least another one, which is maybe just improve the project. It's okay if the boss thinks it's wrong. Or maybe just know, hey, the boss is dead wrong about that, but I'm being paid to do it her way. Okay, whatever. But also remember that your real job in life is to use all these situations, every one of them, to help you grow. Watch your thoughts and your reactions to those thoughts. We can also, and I've had to many, many times, I felt helpless. I could not deal with the negativity. Ask God for help, to help us see those situations differently. Help us to see those people differently. This is a huge tool in Course of Miracles. Help me to see it differently. Ask God's help to see it with Christ's vision and not through your ego lenses. Things will look very different. Our negativity usually gets triggered due to childhood experiences or societal programming. There's a lot of that out there. But we don't have to be slaves to that programming. We all know from history that almost all of us are historically descendants of slaves, enslaved people. Almost all, probably every one of us. Certainly if our ancestors are from Europe, Asia, or Africa. Our ancestors gained their freedom from these neighboring tribes and nations somewhere along the line. Do we want to enslave ourselves again to our programming? The world is very supportive of that programming of being negative. Oh, he did that to you, I'd hate them, I'd get revenge. Freedom is part of the spiritual path, this freedom from this conditioning and programming. That is what enlightenment is. It's total freedom. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Free from what? Free from suffering of all kinds. Negativity creates suffering and emotional and physical diseases. I'm looking out at you doctors right now. I know you know that this is true. We all know that it causes disease. So let's say we're getting very present, very honest with ourselves about seeing our negative thoughts, our stinking thinking. What do we do about them? It takes some commitment to let go of our programming and habits and obscure our true selves, our divine inner selves. We've been living with our negativity for a long time. Haven't most of you been living with it for a few decades? I certainly have. We're used to it. It's like our little sister and brother. But we're probably also sick of the suffering that we've endured because of it. That's why we want to deal with it. We are basically divine, pure beings. But nature made us the way we are, but nature only develops us up to a certain point and then leaves the rest to us. We have free will, remember? It's like nature creates corn, but nature doesn't create tortillas. Nature creates milk, but nature doesn't create those yogurt smoothies we like so much. Nature creates grapes, but not wine. It's up to us to go that final step. There comes a time when we must choose or not to develop our higher self and enjoy the peaceful, joyful life that this provides. Like Adam and Eve, we can enjoy the Garden of Eden, our Garden of Eden, or we can eat the apple from the tree of good and evil. That's what the metaphysical meaning of the story of Adam and Eve means. They were in paradise. They were in the Garden of Eden. All was good. They knew no evil. Their ego was not in operation yet. All was perfect, but they had free will. They had free will. And they chose to eat the apple. Adam and Eve, with their free will, chose to eat the apple from the tree of good and evil. And that opened their eyes to good and evil, their primordial self and their ego. They were stuck. So why did this happen? Well, the serpent, remember, the symbol of the devil, at least in Western culture, tempted Eve. Then Eve, symbol of our emotions, convinced Adam, symbol of our intellect, to eat the apple. And they left their state of bliss. And this is the scene that we all relive every second of our lives. We choose to allow negativity or the devil into our otherwise peaceful lives or not. Will we choose to live in happiness, in paradise, our Garden of Eden, or will we let our ego lead us astray, east of Eden? Many of you saw that movie. We have free will. We can do whatever we choose. And the whole rest of the Bible story is story after story after story about the suffering that resulted from this wrong choice. It's basic psychology and spirituality 101. They made a choice with their ego, and they paid for it. It all boils down to self-observation and letting go of whatever doesn't serve in our lives. When we have finally suffered enough, we often do that. And thus the story of the prodigal son and redemption from that original bad choice to follow the ego, our more human self, or many call our lower self, or the devil. It's all about renunciation. We have to make the effort to do that. And it's a perfect time now during Lent. Remember, this is Lent. You're supposed to give up something. We're all supposed to renounce what doesn't serve. So let's let go of all of these negative thoughts that don't serve. And it's not a Lenten sacrifice like giving up chocolate is either. It's simply allowing the higher self to prevail over our human ego. It's choosing to live in our Garden of Eden instead of east of Eden. That's what it is. Letting go of negativity is liberating ourselves from what holds us back from all that we can be. It's freeing ourselves from inner slavery to our conditioning. Slavery to ego desires and all the fears and doubts and insecurities that go along with this state. It's no fun. The Bible is full of stories about that slavery, which resulted when the chosen ones, choosing their ego conditioning and not letting go and letting God, took over. Now, metaphysically, the chosen ones are us. We are the chosen ones, as are all characters in the Bible. They're all us. They're all different parts of our psyche. In the Bible stories, the chosen ones were enslaved by the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Romans, etc., etc. These stories are about us, though. And when we abandon our higher selves and start worshiping false gods, false prophets, false values, and symbolic fatted calves, it's our story. This was all what happened in the Bible. The chosen ones made the wrong choices, and they paid the price. Those stories are our stories about when we, with our free will, choose to let things like our negative thinking, our lower egos rule us and run our lives. It's especially easy to do this in terms of being negative about other people. But the Garden of Eden, heaven on earth, is our natural state. We are naturally divine beings. We are Adam and Eve every day of our lives, making that choice to live in peace and love and unity, or to eat the fruit of the tree of good and evil, and then to know both, or not. One of my high school classes has been comparing the Middle Ages and the Renaissance in France, and it occurred to me that making the commitment to accept our inner divinity and give up our negative thinking is kind of like evolving from the Middle Ages state of consciousness to our Renaissance state of consciousness. The Middle Ages, of course, were a time of little individual freedom. Kings and the Catholic Church ruled people's lives in France. The printing press hadn't been invented yet, so few people knew how to read about other ways of life. The compass hadn't been invented yet, so people didn't travel very far. They knew nothing except their very limited environment, mentally and physically. The Middle Ages went on in Europe for about 1,000 years, of course, 456 AD to about 1400 AD. Followed the Roman Empire to the 1400s. I think we too spend way too much time in our Middle Ages consciousness. We let our negativity and our egos dictate our lives, just like a Middle Ages king or all of the Catholic Church corruption that was going on then ruled the people's lives. If you've ever been in or seen pictures of the torture chambers in Mont Saint-Michel and Abbey in France, you'll know what I'm talking about. People paid the price if they didn't let the church rule their lives. Non-believers. Our Middle Ages programming accepts negativity as totally normal. It's just the way society is. We unconsciously conform to social media, herd mentality, and mass psychosis, which is always blaming someone else or some outer circumstance for our problems. We often honestly don't think it is even possible for us or the world at large to live in a state of peace and unity and love. I mean, we've kind of are losing hope. But great minds have told us forever that it is absolutely possible for us as individuals first, and eventually the world, as enough individuals change. The whole Bible is about this state of consciousness. Myriad philosophers and spiritual teachers have talked about these enlightened states. Even the great cynic Voltaire spent 2 whole chapters talking about it in his novel Candide. Plato wrote about it in the Republic. Thousands of authors have written about various upgrades to our consciousness and said, absolutely it's possible. It's written that Jesus the Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Gandhi, and many others modeled this consciousness so that we could emulate it and live happy, peaceful lives. But it's up to us to choose. How? I suggest for the rest of Lent that we commit to giving up our negative thinking as soon as we spot it. Let go and let God run our lives. Just let it go. And if you're having trouble, ask God for help. Let's make this Lenten season a time when we give up our Middle Ages, Dark Ages consciousness and enslavement to negative thinking. Let's commit to our renaissance, our rebirth into higher levels of consciousness. Renaissance means rebirth in French. The Renaissance was a time when everything became possible. The printing press was invented, so books abound and were ubiquitous, and people learned to read and discover all kinds of new ways of thinking and freedom. The compass was invented, so they started traveling everywhere, discovered new lands, new ways of living and thinking, like Christopher Columbus discovering America. And eventually, they jumped out of their status quo paradigm. After 1,000 years of dark ages and political and religious oppression in Europe, Martin Luther King even left the corruption of the Roman Catholic Church and founded Protestantism. New ideas bubbled up all over the place. People were no longer slaves to oppressive ways of thinking that limited them. Our spiritual renaissance has been led by a melange of ancient spiritual wisdom and modern psychology, which enables us to understand ourselves and why we suffer. These tools are like the compass and the printing press were to the Middle Ages, catapulted them out of the old Middle Ages into the Renaissance, out of the old limiting ideas. We too can see new horizons. We can imagine peace and unity in our own lives and the world. Many people are imagining that now. Lives without judgments, prejudice, hatred, or fear. We just need to choose it, first as individuals and then model it so we can start changing our immediate environment and eventually the world. Let go and let God, not our egos, run our lives and the world. Our inner Adam and Eve have free choice. Existentially speaking, every minute, every second, we don't have to eat the apple from the tree of good and evil. Life can be all good. So for the rest of Lent, why not give up our Middle Ages consciousness of negative thinking, limiting thoughts and beliefs that enslave us? Let's work on being very, very present and mindful and aware of what we're doing and saying and thinking as often as possible so that we can spot what to give up. It's all about becoming conscious of when we're letting our ego, our inner serpent, our devil, our negativity control our lives. At those moments of awareness, we can recalibrate. We can let our spiritual GPS system direct our lives. We can let go and let God. Let me share with you an example of how this worked for me recently. The Monday after Mardi Gras, I've been off my teaching job all week, and I did not want to go back to school. I'm a high school teacher, and I think I caught senioritis from my students. Every fiber of my being was filled with negativity about returning to what I called work. As I was driving down Metairie Road, I thought about retiring. I thought about calling in sick. I thought about playing hooky. I thought about taking a personal day. I even thought about just quitting. I usually love my job. I get to speak French all day long with really nice, smart kids and discuss French history and literature and philosophy and cinema. My gosh, and I'm getting paid for all this. I love my classes and students. But that day, after a week off, I was miserable at the thought of it. You talk about negativity. It was negativity on steroids. Then, about halfway to school, I remembered my Lenten pledge to recommit myself to God physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually every half hour. That was my commitment. And I finally remembered it. That meant giving up my negative thinking. First, I faced the fact that I was having all those negative thoughts about school, about work. It was really easy to justify, too, because half the cars I saw en route to school were filled with kids who were probably more negative than I was going to school. I was succumbing to herd mentality, to the mass psychosis that is ever ready to dread work. But then I thought, what am I resisting? What did I need to see differently? And then it occurred to me, I was stuck in my programmed conditioning. I was a slave to my consciousness, that herd mentality that thinks that work is something that you have to endure to get what you want and do what you want to do, right? But in reality, a minute is a minute. Whether you're at a so-called job or at some retreat where incidentally you pay a lot of money to work. I've done things like cook, clean, empty garbage, all sorts of things, paying a fortune to get to India and all over the place. Why? To learn about myself and my negative reactions. Here I was going to some place where I was going to get to do that in comfort and air conditioning, and I was going to get paid for it. Many spiritual retreats and group therapy sessions have a caption like, I just saw this one this week, making use of unfavorable conditions. Or, here's another one, learning to consider adversity as a friend. There I was going to my job where they were paying me, and I could use this job to do the same thing, observe myself and work on myself. Use all my life circumstances as grist for the mill. And you know what? I started seeing the situation differently because I did remember. I realized that it didn't matter if I was going to work, to the beach, to a class, or to an ashram in India. The opportunity was the same. My goal was to use whatever experiences and people I encountered out there for feedback for my growth and spiritual understanding, because I was constantly reacting to people and environments, and often it was negative. A minute is a minute, if we are present. It wasn't about what was happening or who I was with. It was all about the filters through which I was seeing them. I had the perfect environment for feedback in terms of helping myself grow and get free. I teach adolescents. Believe me, you have a lot of opportunities. I had the perfect opportunity to see my negativity, my resistance to life, so that I could start releasing that negativity. I recommitted to God at that moment and to my higher self, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and my ego filters started dissolving. And suddenly, I was looking forward to all the adventures. This is true. And opportunities of the day, I was really looking forward to it. Every person and event would be grist for the mill. All the triggers would be a huge gift to help me see myself and know what to let go of. And I was getting paid for it. And it turned out to be a wonderful and fulfilling day. And I was thrilled to see my students. And all this happened because I remember to let go and let God. When I recommitted physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I realized that my ego and my ego desires had been running my life that morning. I had been going on automatic, like a stimulus response machine. Work equals negativity. As soon as I recalibrated to my higher self, I realized that it didn't matter what I was doing. A minute is a minute, and God is our pilot. As I often say, if God is just our co-pilot, change places fast, or our ego will take over. And our flight to New York may end up in Guam. If we're really on track spiritually, every minute is a golden opportunity to learn about ourselves. Every minute is a chance to let go of that negative thinking. Give it up for Lent. All the negative programming that makes us suffer. That's all we're giving up is suffering. We can then appreciate every person, every activity, because they can all help us see ourselves and help us grow. That growth is what frees us from our inner serpents, our ego, and helps us access our inner Garden of Eden. Peaceful, joyful, fulfilled lives. And also attracts other people who are living peaceful, joyful, and fulfilled lives. And remember, when you're doing this, when we first start seeing things about ourselves and spotting the negativity that we might want to let go of, it might kind of seem like a crisis. Our ego doesn't like what it perceives as criticism. We might go into beating ourselves up about it. Maybe we see our anger, selfishness, judgment, and we feel really bad about ourselves. But seeing this is good because we can then let it go and it won't be there anymore. Congratulate yourself for spotting it and letting it go. It is merely seeing your ego. It's not seeing you, it's seeing your ego in operation. And your ego isn't the real divine you. What seems like a crisis to the ego is really an opportunity for the emergence of our higher self and the peace, harmony, and love that result from that. Remember the Chinese word for crisis also means what? Opportunity. Seeing our ego's self-defeating shenanigans isn't a crisis. It's an opportunity for our rebirth, our renaissance into higher consciousness and a better life. It's like seeing our mistakes on a test. We've all had tests. What if all we ever saw from the teacher was just the grade? We took a long test, we get it back, all that's on there is the grade. It would be like the same thing as often is the case. We see something in our life isn't working, but we don't know why not. Nobody's correcting the details. When we spot the negativity, that's good. Then we can let it go. We've seen our mistake and we don't make it anymore. Often we need to ask God's help in letting it go. But then we start noticing how absolutely amazing life can get. So just notice, if your ego, negativity, is obvious to you in a particular circumstance, spot it, give it up, commit to that, give it up for Lent, and then turn it over to God. Ask for God's help and guidance so that you can keep seeing it and letting it go more and more, so eventually you're not having those negative reactions at all. And you can enjoy the peace, happiness, and fulfillment that you so deserve. So, in closing, remember, sow good thoughts and you reap good acts. Sow good acts and you reap good habits. Sow good habits, you reap good character. And sow good character and you reap a good life. So, release your negative thoughts and your destiny can be your Garden of Eden on earth, which is really your birthright. So, the Garden of Eden or East of Eden, it's your choice. But you certainly enjoy the Garden of Eden. And you all have it right there. All you have to do is access it. Release, and you're there. Thank you. May we bless our offering. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit, it is so now. This Saturday here at Unity in the family room from 3 to 5:30. And Jack will be leaving for the season. I think it is the last time for a while, so take advantage of it. Okay, and Steve, we've got an announcement too.
Morning. All right, so last Sunday we passed out some class curriculum and for the spiritual education and enrichment class that I plan to teach on the 3 first Saturdays of April. And the overwhelming favorite was healing and wholeness. So I do have notes. There were 2 others that tied second. So at least I know where your interests are. But the overwhelming favorite was healing and wholeness. So that will be the class that is taught on the first 3 Saturdays of April. So I'm definitely looking forward to it because there were like about 15 votes overall for healing and wholeness. So I'm looking for 50 people minimum. And listen, if your class wasn't on there, keep in mind that it's still going to be taught. It's going to be taught. This isn't the only class. All right, so whoever is the incoming minister, they're going to teach spiritual education and enrichment classes as well. And I will make sure that whether it's myself or someone else, I will make sure that they receive your information, your vote.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Okay, will you stand for our closing? The light of God surrounds you, the love of God upholds you, the power of God protects you, the presence of God watches over you wherever you are. God is, and you are safe and secure. The Lord watches between me and thee while we are absent, one from the other, and helps us to know that we are all one in spirit through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. And we make a circle and we'll sing our peace song.